I told Grant stuff that I was gonna do, which is really funny, and I'll tell you guys all in a minute. But first off, welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast, Adrian Bishop Flyroid's podcast, where we talk about things that are bookish and not so bookish. Tony, what are you reading?
What am I reading? Okay.
We're just gonna jump right into it today.
Sure. So for my nonfiction, because I did not talk about this book yet. I thought I had, but I have not with the podcast. Anyway, so I am reading, for nonfiction, I'm reading this book called Moses, A Life. It was written by a guy named Jonathan Kirsch, who I know is professionally considered, I would call him a scholar. I would go as far as to say he's a historian. I think. Either way, he is a fantastic writer, and he really understands how to guide you through a subject without being judgmental is not the word I'm looking for. But, like, you know how there's always these, like, debunkers, right? And the Bible tends to attract these kinds of people because of, the nature of the book and the nature of how it's been used and, all those things. You don't have literally the most translated work on the planet not have debunkers, right? That's just kind of how that would go. But what's interesting about him is that, like, while he is very clearly and very cleverly debunking Moses, because his, like, aim is, especially because this was published in 1998, so his aim was literally just to be like, yeah, guys, just so you know, Moses is not Charlton Heston. Oof. It didn't happen that way. First of all, it didn't happen that way biblically, but second of all, it definitely just could never have even happened that way, even biblically, because the things don't line up and they're not supposed to. So he sort of breaks all of that down in his first chapter, which is really, really cool. And he does it in a really, like, clean, simple prose that doesn't make you feel like if you haven't read enough archaeological studies, you have no idea. No, he leads you right exactly where he wants you to go, and he's really good at it. So I'm really enjoying it so far. But I've only read the first chapter, which was pretty hefty, but I'm looking forward to more because it's great. It also gave me my novel idea, which I needed because.
Well, the one that you posted on Facebook where you're like, hey, I'm writing biblical fiction, and I was like, what?
Yeah, well, because I've already been sort of like in that arena anyway, but I was having a real problem with Moses because I have to start there, and I was just like, but if you're going from like a historical person, he didn't even exist, so I couldn't determine, like, am I going to go the Madden Miller direction and sort of write a story where it's like, we all know this isn't real, but let's play along kind of thing and give you emotions and all the things that novels can give you, or was I going to go in the other direction and, be a little bit more hardline? I'm glad to say that I was able to do it by getting rid of Moses entirely. Anyway.
Bye, Moses!
It's fine. His sister's more interesting. So now that I've committed blasphemy, I'll tell you what I'm reading fictionally. It's a book called Game of Queens by, yes, you heard that correctly, Game of Queens, by India Edgehill, who is a librarian in Ohio. Oh. Or at least she was. This book, I think, was published. We had this book at one point. It wasn't Cirking.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. What I'm trying to. I think it was published in like 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And speaking of, quote unquote blasphemy. 2015. Oh, wow. That's much sooner than I thought it was. Okay, so 2015, she published this book. It's really good. It's basically like taking the story of Esther from the Bible and retelling it from a historical lens. But one of the things that's interesting about how she does it is she starts with the character of the prophet Daniel. And she's writing this whole, so she divides the book into 4 parts. And each part is devoted to a different character's life. So the first part is Daniel's life and how he basically becomes a part of this whole thing. And then in part 2, it's the eunuch, like the head of the eunuchs, who is named biblically, but the word that is used to name him literally means eunuch. And that's from his first person perspective. And oh gosh, his story was just riveting and wonderful. The third part, which is where I am now, is from the perspective of Vashti, which is, for those who don't know, the queen who was summoned by her king. Now, in the Bible, it does not make it clear, but in some of the rabbinical studies or literature, it makes it clear that he wasn't just summoning her because he felt like it. He was summoning her to appear naked before an entire party of his people. In front of an entire war party. And she was like, no, thank you. They're a bunch of drunks. I'm staying here. But to do that was highly illegal in Imperial Persia. They were like, you disobeyed the order of the king. So they got rid of her, as one would. And that's where that whole contest for queen sort of comes up. And that's how part 4, Esther, is the character for part 4. So yeah, right now I'm in Vashti's part. She's just a 10-year-old girl who's about to marry a 12-year-old king, like you do. So it's really good. She's a really good writer and very good at combining things that you would think didn't need to be combined, or combining things in a way that the way in which she explains away Nebuchadnezzar's whole thing about the fire, the fiery furnace, and his dreams, the way she makes that more realistic. Or even the lion's den, right? Daniel has this friend he's in love with who's a guy.
So a really good friend.
Yes, a really good friend. Well, see,
really good pet.
Yes, he does live in a polycule in which it's him, this guy, and then another woman. Mm-hmm. And they eventually both end up marrying the other woman at different times. But anyway, which they would have done anyway. But the point is, his friend is the chief of the guards, and he cracks a joke. Daniel's like, I'm so glad my God was there to help me from the lions. And the guy goes, no, you're glad that I fed them opium so that they would sleep during the night. And I was just like, of course, that's a brilliant solution. Why did no one think of it? Yeah, so she does little things like that that really underpin the story with more logic than you're used to, if you're used to Bible stories. So yeah, anyway, it's a fun read. It's really good. So that's what I'm reading
Yay!
right now. Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
Love it. Who's next?
You. What are you
Me?
reading? Yes.
Crap. Okay. Anyways, I'm trying to, as you're talking, I'm going to a Mud Hens game in 2 weeks. So I'm trying to save my tickets to my phone.
Sure.
So my brain is whew! Anyways, reading. So I'll just get started with the playing wise because I'm going nuts over Sunhaven again because I can.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't heard me ramble on about this game for ages, which is not the 2 people in this room, it's basically fantasy Stardew Valley, but there's dragons, you can be an angel, you can be a demon, you can be a naga, you can be elemental.
Sure.
You can be. They call cat animal people Amari.
Oh,
and so you can do those.
cute.
You can be an elf, you can be a human, you can grind. There's 2 different types of museum thingies that you can do if you really want to, or you can focus more on the combat aspect of things. There's romance, it's fun. I have 3 saves going simultaneously.
Okay. Sure.
One save I was a human and then I married the captain of the guard, but I felt really bad because one of the characters that's romanceable is this recluse musician dude who's kind of like a vampire. Mm-hmm. And it's insinuated that he is if you look at the different context clues that you're giving you, because one, he hates it outside. One of his favorite things is called a vampire fish, and it's a little vampire bat fish. And he likes anything that's tomatoes, which is like tomato soup, tomato juice, just tomatoes in general, which is supposed to be kind of a this is blood kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
He also likes apples. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with it, and I felt really bad because I was I wanted to marry him too, so I made him a whole character for him. And then there's this demon prince hiding far away, and he's kind of really arrogant, and it's really fun to play and become his friend. So I was oh, I feel bad because now I can't marry him either, and I don't want to use these stupid memory potions where you can use them to get rid of their memory to divorce them. And I was that's a lot.
Ethically questionable.
And so I was I can't do that to them. And so I made saves for all these different bachelor and bachelorettes because I was just I can't not choose one. And so right now I'm actually not playing the human character. I'm playing my Amari character. I made a cat girl. And so she's running around right now. It's really fun. I bought DLC, so you can buy these little like DLC packs of like furniture and like clothing and like little mounts that make you walk faster.
Yeah.
And I have this Celestial one that I hadn't opened when I first got it because honestly, when you get the packs, it's like 63 items sometimes in a pack or like 24 or something. And so there's a lot. And so sometimes you're just really overwhelmed with the amount of stuff you get.
Yeah.
And at first, I didn't realize apparently you can go into your little selling portal where you sell all your stuff to buy back the stuff with in-game currency if you sell it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you could do that. I think that's like a more recent update.
Oh,
so now I can lovingly get rid of all of the excess stuff that I have. So I opened the Celestial thing and I was thinking, okay, fine, whatever. And it gives you a cute little galaxy goat as your, like, pet.
A galaxy goat?
Yeah. It's a blue goat, and it's got, like, galaxy, like, all over it.
Oh, it's a goat. Oh, yeah. That's cool.
And it's like a ram, I guess you could really say, but it's a goat. And when you pet it, it baws at you, and it's, like, the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And technically it's a goat that maws at you. But,
yeah, sure. And then you also get like a galaxy sheep to use as the mount, and it's great, and I love it. I have a picture of it on my Discord. I'll show you later.
That's adorable.
But that's what I'm playing around as right now, trying to re-get things. I forgot how slow this game is when you first start because your character moves like molasses. It's the worst.
It's the same with Morrowind. Like, you need to build up your speed and
you have to level up, and there's like little like perks you can get to make you go faster. And there's food that you can eat that also makes you go faster permanently.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like there's like a whole system. It's like nuts. I would wax poetic about it for an hour if I could. But that's what I'm playing. Meanwhile, though, I've made it my mission, and I mentioned this to Grant, which was really funny. I'm making it my mission to read every recommendation that TikTok gives me. So I can...
okay.
So I can turn around and go, so was the hype really worth it? Like, that's kind of where I'm going with this.
Sure.
And then also, there's this thing called BookBub, where you can get books on discount for your Kindle if you really want to.
Yeah.
Pro tip, Hoopla and Libby are better, but, you know, whatever you want. And so I've been getting some of, like, the, 99-cent ones.
Sure.
So I can do the same thing with the TikTok romances just to see what happens.
Sure.
And so at this moment, I'm reading TikTok / BookBub Wise. Priest came up by Sierra Simone, and I'm not going to explain what this book is.
Sierra Simone, okay.
But TikTok girlies, if you know, you know. If you don't, I'm not going to explain this book because I really shouldn't on air.
Google it.
Don't Google it. Don't do it.
Why not? It's information.
No. Don't torture yourself with it. Meanwhile,
if you are below the age of 18, don't Google it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, regular book-wise, I'm rereading, actually. That was Then, This Is Now, S.E. Hinton.
Oh, okay, sure.
It's kind of, the easiest way to explain it is it's set in the same universe as The Outsiders. It is set after the events of The Outsiders book.
Okay, sure.
Like, I think maybe like a couple years after.
Sure.
The main characters of this book are side characters who were in...
Who were in The Outsiders, but okay.
However, you do get cameos from...
Oh, fun.
Like, certain characters. Like, for example, so the main character of That Was Then, This Is Now is somebody completely separate. It's kind of like a companion novel, basically.
Yeah.
There's Brian and Mark as the two main characters, and they are not in The Outsiders, but they are in the same universe.
Okay.
But you get cameos from people like Curly Shepherd, who's a side character in The Outsiders. I think Pony Boy actually makes like a small cameo in this at some point.
Oh, cool.
But it's kind of it's basically a friendship between two boys as they grow together, but then because this is like set kind of at that cusp of 59 to 60 where things are changing, like it's about kind of like how they grow apart as well because of that change of things.
Sure.
So there's like drugs involved and stuff like that. But
sure.
honestly, it's not that bad of a book. A lot of people like it less than The Outsiders, which I mean, that's fair. But like, to be honest, it does the same job. And if you like The Outsiders, you like this one too because it's such a companion novel to it. So,
Yeah.
that's what we're going at right now.
Cool.
Grant.
Hey.
What are you reading? Watching? You're probably watching like 10 movies at once.
I'm watching a lot of stuff recently.
See? I called it.
As far as reading goes, I'm still reading Purity and Danger by Mary Douglas. I'm reading Life Against Death by Norman O'Brown. It's like a radical interpretation of Freud, and he tries to envision like a utopian society without repression. It's very 60s. It's very 60s.
Yeah. Okay. So was it one of the earliest examples of like going against Freud, or was that more common?
No. I mean, people. Well, what do you mean, like going against? I guess. Because people, they were defectors in the ranks from the very beginning.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's what I wondered about that. If they were if that was a thing that happened later, and this guy sort of kicked that off, or if it was just already happening, and then it kind of.
No, I mean, Norman Brown, he was a classicist. You can tell when you're reading it, he's a very, very widely read individual.
Sure.
Regardless of what you think, of his deductions and whatnot.
Sure.
It's very beautiful writing, regardless. And I kind of want to read the next one, in which he kind of purposely torpedoes a lot of the opinions he expressed in this one.
Interesting.
And it's a lot more poetic, and it's called Love's Body. Because like the whole thing with Life Against Death is, like I said, he's envisioning a world without repression. So, mankind reclaiming the sensuous pleasures of the body, and everybody loves each other, blah, 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 blah.
Sure, yeah.
And he, so the next one's Love's Body, and I feel like the little of what I've actually read from it feels like he's writing from the perspective of, because it was slightly hinted at in Life Against Death, like I feel like this is just him, how do I word it? Love's Body is him writing from the perspective of like that world, like an unrepressed point of view.
Sure.
And you kind of have to look at it from that perspective. I don't know. I've only read like the first few chapters of that one.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what I'm reading.
Nice.
As far as movies, the Criterion Channel has a thing going on right now where they have the vast majority of Paul Schrader's films on there right now.
Oh, cool.
Which, if you don't know who Paul Schrader is, he's a screenwriter and director. He wrote Taxi Driver. I'm pretty sure he wrote The Last Temptation of Christ. He worked with Scorsese a lot back in the day before he kind of broke out on his own.
Wait, does that mean he was in Gontrev? He wrote Gontrev?
Oh my God. Let's say yes. Let's say that Paul Schrader wrote Gontrev.
Sure, I don't get that.
And we actually did talk about that on the podcast. I don't know. Okay. I don't remember which episode.
Okay, I was like, I'm missing something, but okay.
It's a fake movie that doesn't exist.
Oh, okay, cool.
But honestly,
kind of like Moses.
The internet gaslit everyone into thinking that the movie existed, and Martin Scorsese is actually in on the joke and also gaslighting people that it exists.
Okay, I have heard of this. Okay, got it.
The thing is, I'd actually watch that movie though, because
I know you would.
Well, we'll know Scorsese is no longer to be trusted if he actually decides that he's going to make that movie.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, make the movie.
Do it for the meme. I don't even know if he knows what a meme is.
Do it for the phone.
No, probably not. No.
So yes, I binged some Paul Schrader movies.
Yeah.
So first off, I watched his directorial debut, which is Blue Collar.
Okay.
Stars Harvey Keitel.
Like the TV show?
Is there a TV show called?
No, it's White Collar. I'm done.
You're thinking of White Collar, yeah.
Sorry, my brain is like, choo!
So it's Harvey Keitel, and who is the other guy? He's a comedian. He was a popular comedian in the 70s. It is
Richard Pryor?
Richard Pryor. Yes,
Oh.
it is Richard Pryor. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name.
Oh, okay.
And there's a third guy by the name of Yaphet Kotto, who is also in Alien, the original Alien.
Yeah.
He's kind of the standout character in it for me.
Really?
Harvey Keitel is very good as well.
Okay.
So basically, you're following these three dudes that they work in a factory in Detroit. Paul Schrader's from Michigan. A lot of his stuff takes place in Michigan.
Oh, cool.
Makes sense.
Yep. And without getting into the nitty-gritty details, they're... Sorry, a child dropped something outside of the door. Okay, long story, very, very short. They're members of a union. Turns out the union is more corrupt than they think.
Oh.
And they're more powerful than they think, and they're not afraid to get people... make people go bye-bye.
Sure, sure.
And yeah, so it's following how they react, how they try to outrun this conspiracy and stuff. It was very good. It's very good. It's a very brutal. I don't know. You feel like you have to take a shower after it a little bit.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Which fits the world it takes place in of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I watched Hardcore, which is I think was his second movie. Also takes place in Michigan.
Oh, nice.
We follow this dude. I know you've never heard that before. We follow this dude.
Never.
This dude.
He is a Calvinist. Yep. So he's in Grand Rapids. So, I'm not extremely familiar with Calvinism, but from what I've gathered, it's a very. To me, it seems very intense, very bleak, very deterministic. There's only a certain amount of people who are going to be accepted into heaven, and you better be one of them.
That's just Reformation formed churches. That's typically how they go.
And Paul Schrader himself was raised in a Calvinist household, and he actually didn't see a film until he was 20 years old.
Yes, I have heard that about Calvinism.
So there's definitely a personal aspect to it.
That's fascinating.
Main character is George C. Scott. He was incredible in this movie. As just like this hard-laced conservative dad.
Yeah, that's George C. Scott. That makes sense.
Yeah, honestly, I'll call this Taken but good.
Okay, yeah.
His daughter goes missing, and instead of a generic ex-FBI person, you have this deeply religious dude from Grand Rapids who goes into the seedy underbellies of 1970s LA to try to track down his daughter.
Oh my goodness.
The ending is sudden, and it left a lot to be desired.
Sure.
The journey is very enjoyable.
Satisfying,
It's satisfying, and it's worth the price of admission to see George C. Scott rage against the society.
Yeah,
So-
that sounds really compelling.
Yeah, not quite as good as Blue Collar, but and really quick, the last Paul Schrader movie I watched, Affliction. It's based on a book, cannot remember by whom. It stars Nick Nolte, Willem Dafoe.
Nice.
Yep, it's kind of on the surface, it's kind of like a thriller mystery. Nick Nolte plays a police officer in this small town, but really that's kind of a cover for the. It's more about the brothers and their horrible father, and how he affects the generation after him and whatnot, and the Willem Dafoe's character, he kind of escaped the whole situation. He moved to New York. He's an artist or something, I can't remember. But Nick Nolte kind of stayed around taking care of his father, and it's taken a toll on him, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, very brutal depiction of alcoholism and stuff.
Sure.
Once again, solid movie. Ending sudden. I don't understand. And I was let down by the ending. I don't know if it's a leftover from the book that it's based on or something.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my least favorite out of the three, but solid.
Sure. But solid.
I know some people really, really like it, but
nice.
It just didn't strike me.
Yeah, right.
Like that. But so that's what I'm doing.
Sure. Nice.
Let's
I like. I approve.
Oh, are you about to grill me?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
So, in the interest of
So
the subject.
We're continuing our series of what do libraries actually do.
Yes.
Last time we did this, it was Tony's turn to wax poetic about stuff that they do up in YC all day.
Yes.
Now it is my turn. So, go forth. Ask me the questions you want.
So, in the interest of the subject at hand, what is your official title?
It's a mouthful. It's literally local history and cataloging librarian.
There you go.
But we literally just shorten it to local history librarian because,
all the time, yes.
While I do the cataloging part, saying all of that in one sentence when you're trying to explain to somebody what I exactly do all day, it's a mouthful. Just call me the local history librarian. Thank yourself later.
Okay, so, since the local history part seems self-evident, we're going to start with the one that doesn't, because people don't always part? Yes. So people don't, when people think catalog, or when people hear the word catalog, if they're younger than a generation that would understand what I mean by JCPenney catalog, then they have no idea what a catalog is, and so they don't know. But anyone who does understand that reference, how much of your job has anything to do with JCPenney catalogs?
None.
Okay, so what is cataloging in the Adrian District Library's world? What is cataloging? What does that mean?
Here's the thing: all of the books on your shelf in a library, and I mean like any library. It doesn't just have to be ours.
Right.
Everything in the library has to be cataloged. And cataloging, in my opinion, this does not mean that this is the official term for it, but when I'm explaining it to people, this is the easiest way that I have found to explain it.
Sure.
Cataloging is basically just a fancy way of saying you're taking inventory of all the stuff that you have in the building. In a way. So what you're doing is you're creating a record of something. So if you are, let's say you work in a warehouse or something, and you get a shipment of stuff and you're taking your inventory, but you have to put all of that on the shelf at some point or grab it, you have to take a record of every single item that you just got off of that shipment because you need to know what you have, right?
Yeah, right.
So when I do cataloging, what that basically means is I take record of every single book, DVD, audiobook, CD, backpack, puppet, you name it. I take record of every single thing that is in this building, and I make a record for it. That record then shows up on our catalog system, which is basically just, it's a website. It's our kind of personal Google. You search for books in there, and it tells you, do we have it in this building or not?
Correct. Yeah.
Anything that I catalog shows up on that website. So it's basically taking a book, making a record of it, and then turning around and having that as inventory for circulation.
Yeah.
And circulation basically meaning taking a book out, checking it out, and checking it back in. That's like kind of like the circle of life for a book, hence circulation.
Yes. That was a really easy circulation 101. That was good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's really all it is.
Because that's what it is. Yeah. I catalog or make records for everything in this building.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
That doesn't just mean adults, which I do focus on most of the time for other parts of my job description.
Yes.
But that also means everything up in youth services, I also have to touch and go, oh, this,
Mm-hmm.
we own it.
Right.
I then turn around and I make little slips for it and go like, hey, this book needs a sticker, or this book needs a special note in it, or this book needs like a book plate. Maybe it's a donation from somebody because somebody died, and so now we have a memorial book in here.
Yeah.
I make little notes of that so people who do processing, which I've also done in the past, can turn around, put cute little like jackets on, or put all the labels on, so that way when it goes out on the shelf, you know what book you're looking at, and you know where to find that book on the shelf. Mm-hmm. So that is kind of like what the cataloging aspect of my job is. Yeah. That doesn't mean that that's all I do all day. It is most of the time. But it is not everything that is encompassing of my job.
Would you say that your
Tony's
Okay, would you say that how much of cataloging would surprise people, in the sense that like do you think the time that it takes would surprise people, or would like the whole process, or like what aspect of cataloging do you think would surprise most people who just have no idea how this goes?
Most of what I do is what's considered copy cataloging.
Yeah.
I have done original stuff in the past. That does not mean that like I don't know how to original catalog. It's just
horrible.
That is just
not fun.
That is just the easiest thing that we can do, because a lot of what we scan or what we look to has already been cataloged by the Library of Congress or the state of Michigan or things like that. And so we can pull records from there and then amend it to our system.
Including that brand new book that was just announced on the Oprah Book Club. I mean, not recently, but
which book was that?
I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking of like The Covenant of Water. When that was brand new.
Yeah, that one
even
too.
That one,
currently,
right.
I think her book club book is Long Island by Colm Toibin.
That's right, it is. Look at me go.
Which we do have.
Yes.
But basically, I think what would surprise people the most is how complex it is. It is not for the faint of heart.
No.
It is a very long and arduous process, and it is super complicated. It is made overly complicated by what's called MARC records, and MARC records turn around and it's like a whole system of numbers and different ways of doing like actual cataloging.
Yeah, because like each number is basically like a preset of, and it means something.
And this is done by the Library of Congress. It's like a whole entire thing. And while it's great, there is a lot of like, there's a learning curve that goes with this. And I think something else that would surprise people is that the changes to the tagging system is slow.
You are
slow.
It's
just
unbelievable.
What is it? Last year? No, 2 years ago maybe, they just recently changed illegals to like illegal aliens.
Because it was illegal aliens.
It was aliens. And so
yes.
now it's finally like undocumented immigrants or something like that.
Yes.
That was like a 10-year-long like stint where they were trying to convince the Library of Congress to change that subject.
Yes.
It was a whole thing. Took forever to get that changed.
Yeah, it was, unbelievable.
I think something else that would surprise people is just, one, how many books I go through in a day if I have the time.
Sure.
I can catalog if I can, like, have nobody talking to me, like, just blinders on, just, like, straight going. I can do maybe about 50 to 100 books a day.
Wow, yeah.
Cataloging.
Yeah.
That is just straight, doing absolutely nothing all day, just sitting at the desk, going...
Yeah, just cataloging.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
No questions asked, no nothing.
Yeah.
If, like, the amount of time it takes... If you copy catalog, takes... In my opinion, it takes me about maybe like a minute and a half per book.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
that makes sense.
50 to 100 books.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Nice.
That's how I get through everything so fast.
Yeah. No,
Tony's like, what?
It makes sense because I've cataloged in the past, and it does. The problem with and I don't know. Okay, I'll just ask because I know how I felt when I was when Margie and I would catalog. Youth services stuff. So my question for you then, I guess, as far as that goes,
is cataloging
is like, do you find, because you know how youth services has all of these like wide variety of things, like,
yes.
So do you find that irritating, or do you have a system in place that makes it a little easier for you so that you're not cataloging like 5 picture books, 2 backpacks, a puppet, and a DVD? You know what I mean? Like,
no. So what I usually do is, in the back room I have a cart. And if you've been in the library, you've seen me with this cart because it is usually just filled to the brim with the books or stuff. I don't particularly have a system with that. What I do is, so I will do one section of a cart. So there's 2 levels to the cart. There's top, there's bottom, and then you can put 2 rows of books on each on each level.
On each side, yeah.
So what I do is I do one side of the top level, and as soon as I'm done with that side, and that is usually dependent on the amount of books, like the size of the books. So like kids' books are notoriously tiny, so it can be like infinitely more. I've found an average of like 42 books per side for kids that I've been able to have on there.
Yeah.
So I will do a side, and then what I will do is I will make label sheets, and as soon as I move that off, I then grab more books and I replace it, and then I move to the bottom row.
Nice.
I do that bottom row side, and I do the exact same thing, and then I turn the cart around, and then I do the other side. So that way it's kind of ever rotating.
That's what I do.
And then when adult books come in, usually I replace one of those sides of the cart, because we have like an influx of kids' books lately. Thanks, Jess. Love you. Anyways, I will switch out one of the sides of the cart with the adult books, and I will go through and do that. Yeah. When I run out of books, I usually then switch over to DVDs, or if like I'm trying to get through a whole bunch at the moment, I will just en masse do DVDs. Yeah. Or if there's like puppets or things like that, and I have enough space on my cart, and I think, okay, I think we can back off from books for the moment, I will grab one of those as well. Nice. I tend to, if I'm doing one puppet, I do all the puppets. Yeah. If I'm doing one backpack, I do all the backpacks just to get them all out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that kind of ties into everything else that I do. Because I also, for those who don't know, I order all of the adult materials downstairs.
Yeah. So what is that?
What is that like?
I mean, how do you... Okay, I'll break that down, because that's a too big of a question. Like, okay, so how do you decide...
Oh my god.
what books we need or should have for the Adrian District Library's collection? Okay, yes, good, yes.
It's a mix of things. So first, one of the things that I get every single month is we have a subscription to what's called Library Journal. Mm-hmm. Library Journal does this really great thing where like months in advance. So I think last month, maybe the month before, I think it was April. Like they do a 6 to 5 months in advance. They will give you a pre-publish alert. And they will give you authors that are huge. So your Clive Cussler books, your James Patterson books, your like J.A. Jance's, dropping some bigger names, like those kind of things.
Now, Library Journal is a magazine, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
There's also an online subscription to it.
Oh, cool. All right, yeah. Sorry, I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, no, it's a magazine. They will have basically like the pre-pubs alert, and I can fill part of my cart in with those. Yeah. But then... I have to turn around, and when it gets closer, what I really much pay attention to is reviews. I don't just focus on, all the big names are coming out. I focus on, like, a whole bunch of stuff. So the first thing I focus on is the reviews of the book. Is it a good review? What do people think of it? And it's not just Library Journal that I look at. I look at, like, 5 other places. Yeah,
so what constitutes a good review for you?
So first off, for Library Journal, there's also another magazine that we get here at the library for our our cataloging / purchasing purposes, and it's called Booklist. Booklist also has reviews in it, and I purposefully mention those two because when in our system where we're buying books, there's a thing where you can look at the reviews. And so sometimes the reviews will be starred or will get a thumbs up from either Publishers Weekly, Booklist, Library Journal, Kirkus, a whole bunch of different like places to get reviews from, which I read like wholeheartedly. Yeah. If it has 2 like special thingies, like 2 stars or 2 like a thumbs up and a star, like things like that when I'm looking at reviews. That is kind of like an automatic in on the cart. Gotcha. Why? Because that means that 2 places out of like the 5 that I'm looking at have like fully thought that this like book is going to be like a knockout.
Yes, and in case that doesn't sound like a lot, getting 2 review publications to agree on any single random publication is to call them like stars is a big deal.
A big deal. Yeah. If it has 1 star, I will put that in the cart and I will keep that for a more heavier consideration, specifically because like those books are literally being said like, hey, these are pretty good. Yeah. Other things that I focus on are quite literally if I'm doing a series by an author. Yeah. And the next book of the series is coming out, I will turn around and I will look up in our system, do we have the previous book? And if we have the previous book, how much has it circulated since we bought it?
Yeah.
And if it's circulated, I'd say more than 3 or 4 times, like, in my opinion, especially if it's, like, let's say it's, like Fourth Wing, right?
Yeah.
And let's say Fourth Wing only circled, like, 3 times, but it's only been out for, like, a year, and then the second book's coming out, I will consider it for purchase at that point, because it is circulating. It might be a little bit low at the moment, but when you get that second book, there might be a hype that comes up with it, and you want that first book and that second book to do that. So I look at circulation stats to see how much it's circulated in the building. I also do focus on if people recommend books or want to check out books here that we don't own.
Yeah.
I take those recommendations to heart because it shows me, one, what type of books people are reading in this building and in the community, and then 2, if that book isn't easily accessible, I can, like, purchase it. Not only will the patron be happy, but we'll have that kind of, like, hole to fill in interlibrary loan world where, like, we can send out that book to other people if they want it.
Yeah.
So there's, like, a whole bunch of different, like, things that you have to be able to, like, look at. Followed by, does it fit within the budget? Because there's a budget that's involved, everyone.
Yes.
So if you're like, why didn't she buy this book? Sometimes there are so many books that come out that are so good that I can't buy all of them.
Yes.
And you might have to wait, like, a couple extra months for me to be able to fit it in somewhere. Like, if you make recommendations, I will look at the book. I promise. If it's a textbook, hard no. If it's kind of misinformation-y, also hard no. But outside of that, like, I will consider it.
Yeah.
Don't recommend me books with misinformation, though.
Yeah, no.
That's not going to work.
So, that means you purchase for, like, nonfiction, too. All right,
yeah,
so...
nonfiction, fiction, DVDs, audiobooks, large print, anything in our library of things, anything that is downstairs in the main floor for adults.
That's your purchasing.
I buy all of them.
Yeah. So, you mentioned misinformation, and this is a good way to segue into the other aspect of your job, which I want to give you time to talk about.
Okay.
So, can you give a brief of what misinformation is and how you're able to determine what that is?
So there's a lot of misinformation.
I know, it's a huge...
It is such a broad topic.
It's such an unfair question.
It is so broad. Misinformation, honestly, so the thing with misinformation is, when we're using it in the context of today, misinformation primarily just means that, like, there's a lot of bias in, like, what's being said. The information just could be just flat out wrong. Things like that. That's kind of like where we're looking at misinformation right now. When you watch a presidential debate and you see the fact checkers and they go, well, this was cherry picked because they didn't mean just this. There's, like, the rest of this phrase that you have to think about in context.
Right.
Or when they said this statistic is not correct.
Right.
That's misinformation, is when you're being told, hey, like 58% of people like to go fishing, but the outlier is, Joe over here who goes out for like 10 hours a day. Like, there's like some stuff that you have to look at to go like, oh, is this actually factual or is this...
Yeah, like how close to accuracy is this?
Yeah, you have to look at it from an unbiased perspective.
Yes.
And so it gets a little bit of... In my opinion, it gets a little hinky, especially when you're looking at things like political memoirs or when you're looking at books that are politics in general. Because just about anyone could say, oh, this is full of misinformation.
But also people...
But you might be looking at it from a biased standpoint.
Yeah.
You have to look at it from a completely neutral, like, okay, they said this. How off from the actual statistical, like, figure are they?
Yeah.
Like, what do we look at? But misinformation, especially when it comes to stuff out here in nonfiction, doesn't just have to mean bias or just like what I mentioned earlier. It could mean the book is 10 years old and we have new information that's coming out about it.
Yeah, so it's outdated.
So that's like science. So when you look at things like space, for example, we are continuously learning things about space.
Yeah.
Books about space 10 years ago might be wrong compared to books today because some of that information we might not have had back 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. Pluto was a planet.
Pluto was a planet. Or you could look at this through history aspect. If you see a book that is talking about current events, and they're talking about how there's East Germany and West Germany, you know that book is full of misinformation
because it's old.
It's not accurate to today.
Right, it's not.
But if they're talking about like, oh, this happened in the past, that's not misinformation.
Right.
Because they're talking about it in past tense.
In a context.
But if they're talking about it in current tense, like, here's the Soviet Union, it's not the Soviet Union.
Yeah, right.
anymore.
Anyway, right, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you kind of have to take that into context when you're doing things. And if that happens and it's misinformation, then you have the aspect of weeding things from the collection, which will be a whole separate episode, by the way.
Yes.
I'm making
I'm excited for the weeding episode.
Yeah, we're doing a whole weeding episode because that is a whole subject all by itself.
It is. So, to give you some time for local history. So, when you're looking at, because the other aspect of your job
is local history.
Local history.
Yes.
And probably, like, wouldn't you say that is the more front-facing part of your job? Like, that's, okay,
So, the cataloging part of my job and the purchasing part of my job are more of the back-of-house stuff that I do.
Yes.
That is stuff that, like, yeah, you see me cataloging books at the desk, but, like, to be honest, that is stuff that you will not normally see me, like, sit there and talk about on a day-to-day basis.
Right, exactly. Because there's really no need to...
The front-facing part of my job, so the part that everybody sees or the part that, like, is most, like, I connect with the public on, is the local history aspect of my job. And so, to go off on Tony, because I know that they're going to ask this question, local history, we have a heritage room. The heritage room, the topic of the heritage room spans anything from the city of Adrian to Lenawee County. Particularly, we focus on the city of Adrian because we are city library.
Right,
we are downtown. This is where we focus on.
Yeah.
But I do have stuff that is on the actual county outer lying areas.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but enough where I can get you information that you might need. The public-facing part of that job is people ask questions. People want to research in that room, but they might not know how, or they might live out in Colorado. I just got a letter from this guy from Florida asking me a whole bunch of questions.
Oh, cool.
So I might get a whole bunch of questions for some guy who lives in Florida, and
that you may never meet.
That I may never meet, but he has questions about his family members who might have lived in this area at the time, or things like that.
Yeah.
And I turn around and I like to lovingly call it a scavenger hunt. But I'm basically researching, but I'm going on a scavenger hunt for all of the information that you're giving me and finding the answers to your questions.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I also teach people how to use the room. So, like, how to use microfilm, how to use the technology, how to research just stuff that's in that room.
Yeah.
How to research just things in general, like, with the tools that you are given and stuff that we offer and how that can be used in a way to find the information you want. So that's the more public aspect of my job, is talking to people going, hey, like, you want to know this about your family member? Great. So here's different places that they might have lived. Here's a list of places that they lived when they died, that they lived around when they died. So here's some cemeteries around there if you're looking for their gravestone. Hey, I'm looking for a house. I want to know who lived in the house from this time to this time.
Yeah.
So then I turn around and I go, okay, so according to city directories, they lived here. And then I like to recommend people go online to our Daily Telegram archive online. Yeah. Because, especially if they have a library card, because they can take the people's names that they found or the address and look up the people and the address and get way more information than if you turned around and you were just like, I just want to know who lived there. Because when you look in, like, city directories and stuff, you're only getting the name of the person who owns the house. Right. So if you turn around and you look up the person on Daily Telegram or something, you might get a wedding for their child or their sister's coming to visit or things like that. And so you get, like, a whole family history of people you don't really realize lived in that house.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. I do that a lot. Yes, Grant.
So this isn't...
Grant raised his hand.
This isn't specific to local history, but is there any part of your job in particular that you see changing drastically in the library world in the near
In the
future?
library world in the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah.
Not particularly yet. I know a lot of people are currently talking about, like, with AI, like, taking over a lot of different things, cause, you know, like your ChatGPTs and stuff like that.
Sure.
No.
Right.
My part of the position, the only thing that I could think of is if they use AI to circumvent original catalogers. So when you're doing copy cataloging, you're getting AI generated stuff. That is the only thing that I could think of. But a lot of the stuff that I do, and this includes archives and everything, is very hands-on. The one thing that I have to say, like, as a cautionary tale to stuff with AI, and paired with human error, is when you do stuff with the AI, if a person's not paying attention, a lot of the stuff in there could be false or wrong or typoed or things like that.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be as perfect as if you just had a human do it with just basic human error.
Right. It's not Jarvis.
It's not. We're not Jarvis. We're human Google machines, kind of. But basically, how it works is we know how to Google things when you can't.
Yep.
But like in the historical room, like outside of digitizing and things like that, in the future, my plan is to hopefully have things digitized enough in there.
Yeah.
Where, I'm needed for like hardcore cases, but like our staff members who don't know as much about stuff that's in that heritage room, or like patrons who just want to use the computer and don't want to have to come in to use that, or if they're from far away, can easily get on, see what we offer or what we have, and either A, download it if we have it readily available, or B, they can easily just go, hey, I want this, and tell us the exact item that they want, or a picture or article or things like that, and we can just easily have a transaction with them on the stuff that they have.
Yeah. Oh, that's
eventually.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
It's also part of like creating community stuff as well. So I will mention it is like things like we get photographs from like different places that we don't know who they're from or things like that.
Yeah.
It's a community aspect of posting those things online and going like, hey, do you know who is in this photo? Do you know what this photo is from? Getting community engagement, people excited about the city that they live in.
Yeah.
That's
right.
like the big part of it is
harder than you think.
It's harder than you think. Getting people excited like for history is like pretty easy because like a lot of people usually have they have their little Roman Empire of what they like to hyperfixate on history-wise, and that's like their thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to local history, like a lot of people don't want to hyperfixate on that or don't want to really like
because they don't. Do you think it's because they don't know what's in their local area, or they don't think of their local area as interesting, or maybe a combination?
Combination.
Sure.
Full combination.
Yeah.
It's kind of like where like I'll sit there and there are things that I go through the heritage room all the time, and I'm 29. So I have not been on this earth as long as a lot of other people who really like local history and genealogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm still looking in there, and I think the funnest part is, like, people ask me questions, and I am learning things right along with them.
Yeah.
About the city that we live in.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain things, like, fun fact, we had a semi-pro football team right after World War II.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew about our...
Like, it existed, and, like, I didn't know that it existed.
Yeah.
Adrian College played Notre Dame back in 1912.
Oh, that's cool.
We lost, but like it happened.
We played it. Yeah, right.
Like
right. Yeah.
a big team that like is got a huge following played us, this little tiny college here in town.
That's cool.
Like you see things like that in the heritage room, and you go, "Oh, this is fun." And then it leads you down a whole rabbit hole because then you want to know, the semi-pro football team. Who was on the semi-pro football team?
Mm-hmm.
So then you go down a rabbit hole of learning about like all these different people who existed in this place. They lived here, they died here, they exist in this area.
Yeah.
Their families may or may not still be living here. Like, that's like nuts to think about.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of like the nuttiness that you think about when you realize that Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr., I think they were born in the same year.
Yeah, I think yes.
Like, when you
Yeah.
think of that context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you sit there for a second and you go, because you conflate them with two separate eras of history.
Right. Oh, most people do, yeah. But then you
they
realize
were-
they were right there
They
in that.
were literally the same age.
Mhm.
So, like, you sit there and you think about that, and then you think about the stuff in the Heritage Room, and you're like, oh, wow, this stuff was happening here at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of it as, like, looking at the stuff and then comparing it to, and especially you'll see this in the newspapers, but you'll see, like, this stuff is happening in town in tandem with the civil rights movement,
Right.
and being able to connect those two and going, like, hey, this might have happened because this was happening and vice versa,
Right.
and, like, making those connections. It's a lot more fun than you think, I promise.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. All right, so I have something else that's fun.
Okay.
And I just came up with it. I'm
Fun.
really excited about it.
Fun.
So we're gonna do the librarian edition of Smack.
Is that
this is-
another ethically questionable thing?
So this is Snog, Mary, Avada Kedavra. These are all fictional librarians.
Oh, okay.
So-
let's see if I know
less
who they
concerning.
are.
So your choices are Evelyn O'Connell from The Mummy,
Oh, okay.
Barbara Gordon, and Madam Pince.
Well, I don't know. Wait,
Yes, you do. Hogwarts.
Hogwarts?
Yeah.
Well, she's got. Bye. Don't care about her.
Because she's awful. Yes. So we're AKing Madam. That's really funny. Yeah.
I'll snog.
So let Voldemort in the library and have his way with
I'll
that. That's
snog
terrible.
Evelyn O'Connell, but like I'll leave her alone
Yeah.
because she has her thing with Brendan Fraser's character and all the Mummy characters.
Sure.
And we're marrying Barbara Gordon because, like, hello,
Because it's Barbara
we
Gordon. Yeah,
love
that's right.
Barbara
Exactly.
Gordon,
Exactly.
and like if we could just throw Nightwing in the mix there, you'd be perfect with like forever. But like, yeah, we're marrying Barbara Gordon, one because she's smarter than me,
Yeah,
and
she's
two,
amazing,
like. If I need something and I can't find it, ooh, I know who I'm talking to later.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
So that's everything that I want. Hilariously enough, though, when I was a kid, I wanted to be the lady from the Mummy. The Mummy.
Well, yeah, right. Who doesn't? Yeah, she's great. I
That's
love
what got
her.
me into being an archivist. Is her.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I love her entire character. Grant, do you want to weigh in on this at all? Or?
No, I mean, honestly, I'd probably go down the same route.
Sure.
Yes.
I feel similarly.
I Avada Kedavra, what's her face? Because I truly have no idea who she is.
She's such a side character.
She's
that nobody
a
cares.
side character,
Yeah.
and the only time she ever even shows up is when they need to get something from the library and they need to be told no.
Because they're in the library all the
They're
time.
in the library
but-
all the time. But whenever they need to go to the restricted section and there needs to be someone to tell them no, here comes Madam Pince.
No, she's not even there. It's usually Snape.
That's true. It's usually some other teacher or something, but her name is mentioned like, no, you can't do that. Madam Pince watches that room like a hawk. And you're like, who?
She's mentioned like
Well,
twice in all
yeah.
7 books.
Yeah.
In her defense, she's trying to help somebody find their password they lost. So that's why she's
Probably. Yeah.
that's why she's never there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So.